Good evening, everyone. We are lesson 13, and we're going to tackle all about LGBT psychology. So, what are the lesson objectives? When you finish reading this chapter, you should be able to discuss LGBT history and relevant LGBT terms, and explain the importance of these terms. so, I hope that after listening to our discussion today, you might be able to tell what does LGBT terms stand for, and how important it is if these things how important these things for us to be able to know and understand, so that in the upcoming future we won't be able to ano ano sa tawag ani dili ta maka we won't be able to offend someone relating their gender or how we address them. So let's start. Definition of terms. So LGBT stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender, an acronym used to refer to different genders. So what is lesbian? So lesbian, women who are emotionally and sexually attracted to women. So in the first place, lesbian are just women, but somehow their feelings is the same as man, or the way they dress, their behavior, um, their mental thinking, and they think that they're more fitable for being a man. But um, how do I put this? Um, I proceed. But solo gay. So next is gay. So men who are emotionally and sexually attracted to men. So gay, as usual, they are men, but they have the feelings of a girl or a woman. So that's what happens when someone when someone's feelings is unstable, or they are not straight, or what happened honey? um when men change to women, they are actually addresses as gay. So next is bisexual, man or woman who are emotionally and sexually attracted to men or women. So this type of genders, um, they are, I think, it's a gender that stand between lesbian and gay, a gender that attract to both women and men. So transgender, when your gender identity, excuse me, how you feel is different from your physical sex. So I think it's very familiar for all of us when we hear the words transgender. Mostly it's very si tawag ani issue kayo sa ato ang country. People are being mm, how do I call this? Um, di na siya bago sa to, bali nalumaan na or karaan na siya nga issue. But somehow, controversial gyapon siya because mostly in Filipinos, they um, discriminates people who belong to this gender. So, introduction. Labels are so powerful, it can be used to discriminate and oppress people, like how the German Nazis used the word Aryan race to mean superior, and Jews and homosexual, excuse me, to justify their mass murder of what they called as inferior race. So, um, in other countries, when you are not straight, or you are gay, you're lesbian, you're transgender, or what's the other gender or something like that, if you belong to this kind of aspects, then people treat you like does not treat you fairly. They discriminate you, or they label you as inferior race. But somehow, if we think it rationally, um, it's some sort of discrimination of people, because they also have rights, human rights. So I think let's continue. Samok boy, kapoy mag-English, uy. However, labels can also empower people to claim their space in our society, especially in the political sphere. So, nakabantay ba mo sa politiko, guys? Naba mo nakita nga sa atong politiko na ibayot? Naba mo nakita? I think murag wala, no? Or naaman gali pero maihap
Panagsa.
lang. Panagsa. Maihap lang. Wala po tayo nakita siguro nga politiko nga tumboy, di ba? Pero sa kuha, wala po kayo nakita. I haven't seen uh, even once. So I think the politics have also their standards for the people who want to be part of it. So I think um one of their standards is gender, because if ever what if, for example lang ha, so no offense, what if ako mudagan ko or what if Andre mudagan siya pagka presidente, unsay pananaw niyo sa mga tao, unsa kay possible nga reaction nila if makita nila nga ang mudagan nga presidente ising ana, di ba? I think is ilang i-lockdown ang tao, dauto nila, um si tawag ani ini, dili nila madawat kay kuno ingon ana iyang status. But in the eyes of God, we are all fair. Gibuhat ang nga patas, o walay mo lamang, wala po'y malamangan. So language can be used to avoid offense or disadvantage to certain groups of people, like using persons with disabilities instead of using disabled, African American instead of blacks, and LGBT instead of homosexuals. Yeah. So, in order to avoid offense or foul words, we should use the appropriate way of addressing them. Just like African, I think people in the America or don't want to be called African, don't want to be called blacks rather. So they want to be addresses in a appropriate way, just like um, homosexuals. It's so very vulgar words. I think it's very offensive and might might be very, what do you call this, um show some disrespect of to them. So instead of calling them homosexual, we should just label them LGBT, because they also have their rights to be addressed in a formal way. So that's the end of my part, as I am going to be discussing only introduction. So therefore, the next reporter will be Daily Hamero, and the mic is yours.
So, views on LGBT in history. Sexual and emotional attraction towards the same sex have been recorded throughout history of mankind. In China, 600 BCE, they used the terms pleasure of the beaten peach and broke back. In Japan, they have shudo or nansho, which called Japanese tradition of a male love, typically consistent on an older man and a younger boy. Tatui is used in Thailand to refer to a lady boys, refers to the transgender or effeminate gay male in Thailand, while in the Philippines we have babaylan and Catalonan, which means a priest in the indigenous religion of the Tagalog and Kapampangan people, who most wait lang, okay, who mostly women priests, but some are males who live their lives as a woman. Next. In ancient Greek, male are expected to take younger lover in a practice called pederasty, which means a man who engaged in sexual activity with a boy or youth. Native American accepted and celebrated what they called two-spirited person in a dance to Berdach. However, later cultures see it as a sin following of the Abrahamic religion, which is branded it as sodomy, a crime with agenda nature. So Abrahamic religion is mo ni siya ang Christian, Muslim, and I think Judaism, which is against sila sa kanang para ng same-sex marriage because they believe na ang babae para sa lalaki, tapos ang lalaki is para sa babae lang.
Oo, lang
So
culture.
homosexuality were classified as an illness in 19th century as a basis for them to legally persecute homosexuals in prison and commit them to a mental institution. Next. So as the science advanced through the years of extensive research, the American Psychological Association removed homosexuality as a psychiatrist disorder or a sickness in 1973. APA declared that being attracted to people of the same sex is a natural variation of the human experience and it does not make anyone and any less as a healthy and functioning human being. So now that society is more accepting towards the LGBT, new terms and labels has been used to cater to everyone. Next.
The ABCs of the LGBTQA+. Next, dito ako mabasa, Jill. Dito na lang sa explanation because the ABCs of the LGBTQEA+. In the effort of towards visibility and inclusions, a few letters were added to the LGBT. The term homosexual sounded too clinical and it no longer adequately represents the diversity within the LGBT community. These labels are changing. Some you may be familiar with but others be very new to you. So let us try to explain it as simple as we can. Lesbian. Women who are emotionally and sexually attracted to women. The lesbian is a girl who attract sa ilahang gihapong kakapwa babae. Next is the gay. Men who are emotionally and sexually attracted to men. So, same as the lesbian, pero boy to boy, o male to male. So, muna itawag siya o gay. So, bisexual, a man or woman who are emotionally and sexually attracted to men or women. So, duha ilahang they are two ones of attraction, even men or a woman. Transgender. When your gender identity, how you feel is different from your physical sex, male or female. So transgender seems just like how you feel you are a girl or a boy, even you are, oh, you want to become a gay, you want to become a lesbian, so that's the transgender. Queer, used by the people who celebrate all gender identities, can also man someone who do not want to be restricted as lesbian, gay, or bi. So, that's like kagustuhan nga, kung gusto nila mag-gay, so, you can. If you want to become lesbian, you can. If you want to become boy, straight, you can. There's no discrimination of these interstates. People who were born with six genitals or chromosomes patterns that do not fit the typical male or female body. So, the intersex is kanang bitaw babae ka pero ay mo ay lalaki ka pero lalaki ka nga masculine pero imong heart is pang girl, something like that nga kanang bitaw murag wala siya nag fit sa imuhang face o sa imuhang movement, just like that. Babae ka pero ang imuhang lihok is pang lalaki, babae ka pero imong naong imong naong babae ka pero imong naong is pang murag lalaki, so just like that. So the asexual ally are people who do not feel sexual attraction to anyone, but it does not mean that they do not engage in romantic or sexual relationship. Allies all straight or heterosexual people who are fighting for LGBTQ rights. So, na mga tao jud na kanang bitaw ang ilahang wants lang is kana lang puyo lang diri nga kanang dili sa mo commit og relationships kanang bitaw mo sila og murag paingon na mo pare gud ni sila taraw char. Murag ano sila something wala sila gusto sa mga tao murag kuan pud sila pero wala sila nag-discriminate sa mga kuan gihapon pud sa kanang bitaw mga lesbian, mga LGBTQ na mga members. So, ang ilang is to respect others' wants. And then, the last is plus. The plus refers to all sexualities that do not fit in the LGBTQ spectrum. So dapat yung mga tao jud na kanang bitong may mga kagustuhan nga wala pa na bunyag, so they are considered as LGBTQ plus. Knowledge on the human sexuality is still evolving to their many terms that pops up. Here are a few more to help us become more inclusive. Androgynous. People whose gender expression, their physical appearance may not be distinctly male or female. So mo gina mga tao gid nga kanabitang ay ilang mga expression nila is kana yung sangkop gid kay sa ilang kagustuhan jud. Then the gender identity, how you feel man, woman, or neither. So imo yung gender identity gid nga kana bitong kuan kana imong to true feelings gid mo ba something like bayot ba lalaki ka pero imong feelings kay pang babae, so mo na yung inanaang gender identity. Then more on feelings more about sa feelings gid ang kuan jud gender identity nga kanang babae ka pero ang imuhang wants nga feelings is pang lalaki. Then gender expression, how you express your sense of being male or female or neither. May it through hairstyle, clothes, and etc. Something like the gender expression, something like imo movement,
Behavior.
imuhang pagsuot og sanina, behavior, then on how you act, murag something dinha gyud makita ang imuhang dinha nila makita taraw ang imuhang gender identity kung unsa ka mo ay kini siya dali na nato ma cup up nga ay kini siya kay bayot ni siya kay ang nilihukan pa lang, pero not all pod kay nagiuban nga gipanganak sila nga ang ilang yung movement is pang girl gid raw nga kana yung mahinhin pero na street siya, something like that. So di na ta mag-judge about sa ilaha. the mic. I turn over this mic to Lovely.
Thank you, Andre. So, next is sexual orientation. Your emotional and sexual attraction to a person. So, in terms of sexual orientation, pwede po dato din siya matawag na romantic attraction to some of us. So, kani siya is more on kaan siya romantic attraction to to other person. So next is sexual assigned at birth. So you're given sex when we're born based on your sex organ. Um, kaning sexual assigned at birth is kanabitong uh, ipanganak ka. So based sa imong sex organ, so matawag kag male. So tahay like dito ka sa ospital gipanganak. So makitaan sa doktor na ang organ mo is based sa lalaki. So ilag yung itawag nimo is a boy. So next is cisgender. So kaning cisgender, it is also called straight. But kaning straight og cisgender is pareha-pareha ra gini sila. But ang nakalahi lang is ang cisgender is used gini siya to describe gender identity as a person, while ang straight is described as sexual orientation. So when in terms of sex gender, when your gender identity matches with the sex you are assigned at birth. Pareha-pareha ra gyapon ni sila sa sexual assigned at birth. Pero kaning sex gender is gender identity gid ni siya na ma-match bitaw sa imong sex or physical appearance. So non-binary, people who do not feel like a boy or a girl. They may feel like they are both or neither. So sometimes they use the pronouns they, them, and theirs. So kani siya na person is someone bitaw na dili bitaw gyud siya ma-identity exclusively a man or woman. So kaning binary is like kana bitong na sila mix of gender sa ilang kaugalingon. Like they have murag wala bitaw sila gender gyud. Murag matawag po ni siya og gender fluid. So tahay example is kanang some kanang murag high school ka is murag gay ka or lesbian ka tapos some buadto na pud ka sa point sa imong life na mahimo na pud kag lalakig babae mura bitaw wala bitaw gid sila or something
Wala sila
confused but
final decision.
oo final decision mo nang non-binary. So next, understanding transgenderism. So society attaches a lot of meanings to our biological sex or physical sex. Parents unknowingly set up a gender-based pattern of raising their children upon knowing the biological sex of their babies. Pink for girls and blue for boys is a reflection of our heteronormative culture wherein we expect females to be feminine and males to be masculine. So kaning kani siya na uh, normal naman gini sa kuan bitaw sa una sa ato na society na mura bitaw parents gid bitaw na kung lalaki ilang anak kana bitaw murag naay pattern. So pero karon murag ato naman gyud siyang makuan bitaw na murag karon na panahona is something na mura bitaw na kuan siya na break bitaw ang ingana na gender based pattern kay ang uban man gyud is mura bitaw nakuan na nila nahunahon na nila ang ilang rights na uh, wala man gyud kana bitaw dili na sila mapugnan karon na like kaning gusto ka musuot og blue t-shirt pwede kung musuot kag pink na t-shirt pwede dili bitaw kanang dili na bitaw ingon na i-judge na bitaw pud sila kay sa una magyud na panahon kung magsuot kag pink na lalaki ka ignon gyud kanila ay kana siya bayot man na siya uy kanang ana bitaw na kanang inistoryahan pero karon normal na bitaw siya na kung magsuot ang lalaking pink okay ra bitaw na ato pud bitaw nang i-practice na dili gid bitaw ta mag-judge sa usa ka tawo sa iyang sinuotan kung unsa iyang mga binuhatan kay dili man gid pud ingon na kana bitaw ato lang pud hunahunaon na naa pud tay rights kung unsa atong kanang atong kada bitaw buhaton nato. So next, Angelo. This limit oh, this limited viewing sexuality makes it harder for those who do not fit in the box of masculinity and femininity, like the lesbian, gays, and bisexuals. However, it makes it so much more difficult for the transgender people, those who feel like they were born in the wrong body or given the wrong biological sex. So, who is a transgender? The APA or American Psychological Association defines transgender as an umbrella term for person whose gender identity, gender expression or behavior does not conform to that typically associated with the sex to which they were assigned at birth. So kaning transgender is contrast yun ni siya sa straight o cisgender. Kani siya is mo gini siya ang sex na kanabitaw behavior sa usa ka tawo na dili bitaw siya mo confirm to the typical sex nimo, which is like sa giingon ni Andre is kanabitaw lalaki ka ang imong physical appearance imong birth is lalaki ka pero ang imong feeling is babae. So mo ginaang siya ang transgender na ang imong contrast siya sa imong physical appearance ug ang imong feelings or imo bitawng gusto sa imong kaugalingon. Next.
Ako ba yung next? So that would be all our report, and thank you for listening. I hope nga naka-learn sab mo sa amo ang gi-discuss, and that's all for today. Thank you and God bless.